This is the public art installation of Ordinary Vikings in Fertile, Minnesota, October 2 and 3, 2010. The exhibit starts here. This piece is about the Valkyr, and this is a piece of bark that I brought back from Sweden. This is the only piece that does not have a beeswax face, because I want people to look through the eyes and see if death is coming for them or not. Is life coming for them? This is the wing, because the Valkyrs fly, and this is sacred birch that is sacred to the Scandinavian people. So now we enter the oak savanna. It's just an amazing place with these curly trees that are almost like bonsai, and they make these incredible shapes. So the first person that we're going to look at is Bragi, B-R-A-G-I, and this is based on my cousin Tim, who's a brilliant musician. And we can see this. I've made lyre strings so that this is actually a lyre. Here's the bow. And Bragi is the god of poetry and music. And my cousin Tim has been a brilliant musician and has played stringed instruments since he was probably 6 years old. This is the dwarf, and this particular piece has no body, because in our creation stories, the dwarf, his body is cut into the hills and becomes the hills in the planet. And that's why he has no body. In real life, this is a good friend named Brian who lost his health insurance and couldn't afford his diabetes medication and had a stroke because of it, and has worked his way back to have a body. This piece is Paul Pratt as the elf, and this is a running form. And Paul is very lively and folk dances, and the elves are lively. I focused on the stav form, or the stick, and one man today said stavin, and it is. And I wanted to show the use of this form, which is also found in the runic writing. This is Freya, and Freya is the goddess of love and fertility. And I made this, this is Ramona, my stepdaughter, and I made this like a moon, so that I used a different color beeswax, and it's like she's a moon in the tree. And this is a piece of weeping willow. It's very graceful. And everybody wanted Freya, the dwarves, the elves, everybody. This piece is Frost Giant, and this is Gary, and he chose to be the Frost Giant. And at Ragnarok, at the end of the world, the Frost Giant will fight on the side of the dwarves and the elves and defeat the gods. Now we continue down the path, and this is the first piece that I made, and this is the piece that inspired the rest of the series. This is Hell, and this is my self-portrait, and Hell is half flesh and half skeleton. And there's a piece of amber, and this represents the irrevocable decision that we all make, and these are the sinews around which the rest of our life is based. She's kind of a yin-yang figure. And if you turn and look this way, it's in a direct line all the way back to the beginning with the Valkyr, and there's a cross on the other side we'll talk about. Okay, now we're at the family tableau, and this first piece, this is Odin, and Odin gave up an eye in order to gain wisdom, and he also hung on the world tree to gain the wisdom of the runes. He's a shapeshifter, and he had 2 ravens, Hunin and Munin, thought and memory, and he would send those out into the world, and they would gather information and bring it back to him. And this is my dad, and he would gain information, and sometimes he would see what movies I'd gone to or something, and so he always stayed pretty informed on what I was doing. Further on in the pantheon, we have Frigg, and Frigg is Odin's wife, and she is the goddess representing fertility, home, matrimony, and so I've attached a real bird's nest on. She sees everything, and that would pretty much, this is my mom in real life, and they're Wally and Tig in real life, and Odin and Frigg in the mythology, in the cultural stories. And my mom has been very much centered around the home and family, and it's pretty fitting. In this series, this is Balder, and Balder is the son of Frigg, and he is actually killed by Loki through the efforts of trying to, well, Frigg doesn't want Balder to die, so she makes all of the vegetation and anything that could possibly harm him swear that it won't, but she overlooks mistletoe, and Loki hears this, and he entices Balder, Balder's brother Hoder, to shoot a piece of mistletoe, and it goes into Balder's heel, and he dies. And Frigg, over here, goes to hell, down there, to get Balder back, and a compromise is reached, and so Balder comes back part of the time, and this is why we have night and day. This is Len Danielson as Balder, and over here we have Mick Gunderson, and I don't know who Mick is portraying yet. I know this is right, but I don't know who it is. So that's all I can say about this one so far. Alright, here we have Loki. Loki's the trickster, and I made the mask. It's 2-tone wax, and he's also a shapeshifter, and I think that's reflected in the way this wax is. He's beloved by the gods, he's hated by the gods. He does errands for the gods, he works for people. He's constantly between the two places. And he's about 14 feet tall. It's a pretty tall sculpture. This is Don Peterson. And Don is pretty much the devil's advocate in every conversation, and loves to joke, loves to tease people. Very much a trickster in his personal life. This piece is Jormungand, or the Midgard serpent, and this is a pretty interesting piece. The world serpent circles the earth, and this is Claudia Pratt, and Claudia's had a lot of struggles of her own, and is working very hard to overcome cancer, which has recurred, and and she's got great strength. And I think this is a really fitting symbol for her. This is Thor, and the way this has been constructed is both as a Thor's hammer and a cross, as the Vikings were being converted to Christianity, whether by force or through the efforts of some of the women in the community. The very practical Vikings would flip their Thor's hammer up to become a cross if they were meeting with Christian traders, and flip it down if they were meeting with other earth-based religion traders like themselves. And Thor also, when he strikes his hammer, Mjolnir, it creates lightning. And I think that's what this piece reflects also. It just looks completely like lightning. And this is Eric, who has been an enforcer for Hell's Angels. He's a trucker. Pretty interesting person. Now we'll go back to the beginning. So we're back to the Valkyr, and again we see straight down this line from back to hell, where people went if they died in childbirth, illness, or old age. And it's a straight line running north. Now, this is representing pilgrim staffs that were used and which replaced the staff. And this is the direction that the people ended up taking for many different reasons. But there's still a disconnect today between Christianity and the Scandinavian countries. In many aspects, maybe because it was not always a free choice, and this is the direction that things took.